After his return from the mysterious realm of Hel, Odin and the other gods gathered around the impressive world tree to discuss a troubling prophecy. The air was tense. Thor, with a concerned look, expressed suspicion that the seeress intended to break the gods' alliance. He emphasized strongly that Hod, due to his deep affection for Balder, would never be able to kill him. In fact, he believed Hod would rather take his own life. Frigg, in a gentle voice, wondered aloud how a blind man could even strike someone. Ever-vigilant Heimdall warned that Hod's state of blindness could indeed pose a hidden threat. Idun, with her wise and gentle demeanor, spoke about the nature of prophecies, emphasizing that they served as warnings. Without such foretellings, the gods would be defenseless. Freya, on the other hand, was less diplomatic and proclaimed that seeresses often brought misfortune upon themselves. Her words, so powerful and weighty, would require triple forces to counteract them. Odin, with a mix of anger and determination in his eyes, declared that measures must be taken to avert the impending doom. Despite the heavy mood brought about by the prophecies, Balder tried to be a ray of hope for the Aesir. He laughed cheerfully, and his face shone brightly, as if to dispel the gloomy predictions. Hod, on the other hand, could not hide his contempt for the seeress's prophecy. He condemned her words as the vilest malice ever spoken and as a gross insult to the gods. The words of the mother of world destroyers left no doubt that she harbored sinister intentions. Heimdall, ever watchful, cautioned the gods to be careful. He warned them especially about Loki, known for causing trouble. He reminded them of the time Loki had delivered Idun to the giants, weaponless, with her magical apples. However, Thor came to Loki's defense, believing Loki had acted thoughtlessly. In times of danger, Thor argued, the community of gods needed everyone. Upon Balder's advice, the Aesir decided to seek reconciliation, especially with Loki. Amidst this tense atmosphere, they were invited to a feast by the sea giant Ægir. Ægir, who had heard of Balder's troubled dreams, wanted to share the Aesir's concerns and toast to the well-being of the worlds. The invitation was joyfully accepted, and the Aesir went to Ægir's hall, where many elves also attended. However, Thor had other plans. He sought another confrontation with the Midgard serpent. Balder, on the other hand, was strangely absent from the feast. In Ægir's hall, the cauldron brought by Thor was a place of plenty and celebration. Ægir ensured that every guest was content, and mead flowed abundantly from the cauldron. The hall shimmered in golden light as bright as fire, and drinking horns filled themselves as if by magic. In this hall, where both giants and gods drank together, an unparalleled peace reigned. Everyone sat harmoniously side by side, and Ægir's loyal servant, Fimafeng, made sure the guests lacked nothing. The Aesir were impressed by Fimafeng's services and praised him. However, Loki, always seeking excitement, grew bored with the peaceful atmosphere. He got into an argument with Fimafeng and killed him, breaking the peace that had been agreed upon for this place. Immediately, the gods reached for their weapons and drove the violent Loki out of the hall. They sent him into the forest and outlawed him, as was customary in such cases. After the commotion had subsided, the guests put down their weapons and returned to their drinking horns. Loki, aware of Thor's journey to the east, dared to approach the hall again. He approached Eldia, another servant of Ægir, and inquired about what the Aesir were currently discussing. Eldia, the servant, had allowed Loki into the hall in the hope of peace and reconciliation. However, when Loki entered, there was an instant silence. The Aesir, who had just been drinking and laughing joyfully, paused and watched the intruder with suspicion. But as they were inclined toward reconciliation, they did not attack him. They waited to see what he had to say. The hall was filled with the mightiest gods of Asgard. Odin, the All-Father, sat with his beloved wife, Frigg, and beside them were Frey and the enchanting Freya. Other gods, like Njord and Skadi, Bragi and Idun, Sif, Gefjon, Tyr, and many more were present as well. They all held their drinking horns firmly in hand and watched Loki. Loki, wanting to break the uncomfortable silence, complained of his thirst after the long journey from the forest and requested a sip of mead. However, despite his request, no one moved. The atmosphere was tense, and everyone waited to see what would happen next. Then Loki turned defiantly, found the Aesir arrogant, and said, "Offer me a seat in this feast, or expel me from the hall." Bragi was the first to respond, and he replied to the outlaw, saying, "For a peacebreaker like you, there is no place here any more." Bragi had not forgotten that Loki had once delivered his wife, Idun, to the giant Jazi. Ægir and his guests expected Loki to leave the hall. However, the reprimand fueled Loki's anger, and he reminded Odin of their ancient pact. "Do you remember, Odin, when in the early days we mixed our blood? You swore not to drink mead if it wasn't offered to me." The bright elves sitting at the edge of the hall were appalled by Loki's audacity and expected Odin to deny him entry. But Odin, recalling their old bond, offered Loki a seat. He stood up and handed Loki a drinking horn filled with mead. Some of the Aesir present were surprised by this gesture. Idun, known for her gentleness and wisdom, remained calm and replied, "It is not wise to be provoked by words. Our aim should be peace and harmony, not discord." Loki, whose tongue grew sharper with each sip of mead, mocked, "Idun, you may be wise, but you're also known for sharing more than just words with Bragi." Some of the Aesir present were shocked by this direct accusation. The atmosphere in the hall grew increasingly tense. Loki had emptied another drinking horn and lost all restraint. When he turned to Njord and accused him of being used as a chamber pot by the daughters of the giant Hymir, the noise was deafening. Some Aesir wanted to reach for their weapons to defend their personal godly honor, but Skadi held them back. Thor threatened Loki, but Heimdall attempted to calm the situation, appealing to Loki's better judgment. However, Loki persisted and even insulted Heimdall. When Skadi tried to pacify Loki, he reminded her of how he had lured her into his bed and helped kill her father, Thiazi. When Sif tried to calm Loki and offer him a drinking horn, he refused and continued to taunt. He questioned Baldur's innocence and claimed that this innocence was his greatest weakness. At that moment, Thor stormed into the hall. He was furious with Loki and threatened him with his hammer, Mjolnir. The two exchanged threats, and it seemed that a fight was inevitable. However, Loki, always the trickster, withdrew and vanished from the hall, not before prophesying that Ægir's hall and all within it would be consumed by fire. After Loki's departure, some of the gods demanded to find and punish him, but others, like Njord and Frey, pleaded for mercy. Heimdall warned that Loki could do even worse things in the future. However, Baldur spoke against harsh punishment, emphasizing the strength and generosity of the gods. In the days that followed, Loki was plagued by remorse and attributed his wickedness to excessive mead consumption. Baldur was praised in all worlds for his wisdom and magnanimity,